The Asian markets, which are trading quite mixed, but there are some which are doing very well.
Not able to actually meet their obligations to pay their depositors over the course of that day, and they were shut down.
So let's hope that we're bracing for a bit of a bounce, particularly in the broader market.
Adani Group has put out a clarification on the exchanges with regards to the report that was published by the Ken yesterday.
So they've declared their fifth interim dividend, 20 rupees 50 paise for the year.
Sensex and the Nifty absolutely quiet. The Nifty just hovering around that 16,980 mark.
There is broadly a consensus emerging that perhaps we are more close to the bottom in terms of GDP growth rate.
It was a large block of 4.5% equity changing hands.
The Nifty's climbed above 17,000. It's up close to about 0.4%.
I'm not seeking for reappointment for the next term.
Netweb, which is into high-end computing solutions, has filed its DRHP with SEBI for an IPO.
We're seeing actually good pickup on, some of these more viral test markers.
For the moment at least, Nifty is up 54 points.
Well, that was the day so far. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Closing Bell. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Rima and Surabhi. Nigel joins us from the newsroom floor. And of course, we are coming to you from the CNBC-TV18 Motera Fall studios. Guys, hi. I mean, the market on the Nifty is up about 50, 60 points. But the broader markets are doing much better, which I suspect over the next 60 minutes is going to be the bulk of the conversation, which we will have with our guests. Now, on the Nifty, just a quick word. It's a decent move. I mean, it's 60, 70 points worth. It was up, it was more, but the gains still feel, at least on the Nifty, a little tentative, and if I can say, a little fleeting. And I guess that's because of the price action, the kind of market we've had for the last many sessions now. 60, 70 point gains have been wiped out just like that in a few minutes. We've seen that occasionally over and over again. So that's why this is feeling a little tentative. Now, how do you determine that maybe gains are here to stay? You look at very near-term levels. The last high was 17,207. That's a near-term first resistance. And as of yesterday's close, the 20-day moving average is also around the same area. That stands at about 17,230. So once you get past these levels and hold these gains above these levels, I think some more confidence comes back. Now, broader markets, the mid-cap index is up 1%, the small-cap index is up about 1% as well. I looked at returns basically from over the last 15 days, or precisely 15 days. The small-cap index had lost 9%, the mid-cap index was down about 6.5%. So we are indeed seeing some pullback, and as we've been saying, broader markets are the ones where we've seen a huge amount of damage. Just for perspective, and this is a number I put out in the morning as well, 25% of the Nifty 500 stock universe, which is, and by the way, all 500 stocks have got market cap over 1,000 crores, actually more than 1,500 crores. The smallest company in the Nifty 500 basket has got a market cap of about 1,900 crores or so, a little less than 2,000 crores. So these are fairly well-owned, sort of not all liquid, but well-covered companies in many instances. And a 0.25% of this is down more than 20% this year, basically. So that kind of tells you the kind of damage that we've seen. Only 90-odd companies out of the 500 list is even higher. Forget about, percentage gains, about 10%, 20%. Only about 90 companies are even higher. So this is a space which actually is seeing a little bit of a bounce. Now, globally, on Friday, we get the data, which is the inflation number, the core PCE number, which the Fed watches carefully. But between now and Friday, we get a couple of more things. Flows, weekly money flows in the US are important to watch. And what do I mean by that? One is borrowing from the Fed, the discount window and the new facility which the Fed announced. And the second is flows out of equities and other instruments into money market flows. Both highlight risk aversion. Things have been steadying a little bit. This week actually has been extremely steady as compared to the last two. One can only hope that we don't have one more catastrophe or crisis or panic. Can't be ruled out. But at this point in time, this Wednesday, things are looking a lot more calmer. Add to all of that, of course, the fact that tomorrow is a market holiday, at least here in India as well. Rima, hi.
That's the most important cue, right? You save the best for the last.
But, just talk about the volatility. The market has once again started to sell off. So the Nifty has breached the 17,000 mark. So from the day's high, it slipped close to about 50 odd points. So just take stock of the market volatility. It is the March expiry. But talking about the stable global cues, markets like the CAC, DAX, the FTSE, they rallied close to about 2.5% this week itself in the first 3 days. And today as well, European markets are holding up fairly buoyant with gains of close to about 0.5 to 1%. But a week-to-date picture will tell you the relative calm that we've seen across equity markets this week. 1 to 2% gains. Indian markets have actually been the underperformer this week, just up close to about 0.6% thereabout. Individual stocks, Adani Group stocks are making a big rebound, come back after yesterday's drubbing, post the clarifications. Big gains seen on Adani Enterprises ports, up 5 to 6% respectively. Autos are in top gear today. Eicher Motors, Bajaj Auto. You had JP Morgan reiterating their overweight stance with a target price of 4,400. So strong gains seen on Hero, M&M as well. And Bharti Airtel on the losing side continues to struggle post the disruptive measures and announcements made by Reliance Jio, both on broadband as well as on postpaid. So Bharti Airtel continues to reel under pressure.
I think that's really telling. Both Reliance and Bharti, they are the rank underperformers in a market which otherwise is doing pretty well off, right? And perhaps it's because of this tariff hike that now the street believes is, just write it off, at least for this calendar year. Perhaps it's that disappointment playing out. But anyway, but Rima will talk more about that. We'll discuss this with our guests. Just want to go back to the mid-cap index. As Prashant mentioned, bulk of the selling has happened in the last 15 odd days. Overall, we're talking, of course, a lot of underperformance compared to the Nifty in this month. However, this is the screen today. The advance decline ratio is a very healthy 2:1. Over 2,000 stocks advancing, just under 1,000 stocks on the declining side. And Prashant, I was talking to a couple of people. There's also a bull's theory that started doing the rounds for the 1st of April onwards. I think maybe it's hope, but it also sounds logical and commonsensical to me. If you're pulling out money right now to park it in debt mutual funds, what about the reverse trade? Come 1st of April, you're getting 7% in debt. You can't put it in MLDs, you can't put it in debt funds. You pay 42% tax on that, you're left with a 3.5% return. Would they rather not go and start parking it where, we've seen serious sell-offs? So I don't know. That's kind of a hopeful theory that seems to be playing, at least doing the rounds. Whether it plays out or not, we will have to wait till Monday. But Nigel, for what it's worth, right now the gains, at least some of the gains are intact, but it's also expiry, right? Not sure. Still a very tentative 55 odd minutes to go.
Well, the broader markets have performed, right, Surbhi? Finally, after so many days of selling, we are seeing some bit of traction in the broader markets, and that is heartening. And that's actually the call that we made earlier this morning as well, when markets started, that it could be time that the broader markets could outperform. That's because, there were participants that sold their positions, some of their positions where they were making some losses. That's because of tax harvesting. So that's behind you. And the other factor, some of these mid-cap and small-cap stocks, well, they've sold off to such a great extent. Some of them are not bad businesses, but liquidity was an issue and they were selling on the screen. So valuations have become attractive. So that's the reason why we said earlier today that the mid and the small cap indices, just pull up the mid and the small cap indices, both of them are doing far better than what the Nifty is doing. But since it's expiry, well, you'll ask me, what about the Nifty? How is that shaping up? There's 17,000 put, the 17,050 call, they are the most active today. And the 17,000 put, the premium on an average today has been around 25 rupees. So that's why I'm deducting 25 rupees from around that 17,000 odd mark, and the 16,950 odd mark has to hold out. I'll tell you what, if that level breaks, we could see a sharp decline. So just keep that level on the downside, on your radar. And on the upside, we went to around 17,050, 17,060, but that was met with some selling. So on the upside, I think 17,075 odd, that's the level that the bears will look to defend. We're in a bit of a range, but I'm looking forward to the lower level actually getting defended. Otherwise, it's been a bad series, and it could get far worse if that 16,975 odd level does, break. But let's see how things go from here, guys. Final 55 minutes, and we're off for, a intra-week holiday, which isn't such bad news.
Well, look at that smile when you say that, Nigel. That says it all. But let's tell our viewers what's lined up in the next 1 hour. A whole host of stocks are in focus today. Z Entertainment surges as the company reaches an agreement with IndusInd Bank on settlement of dues. pays the first tranche and promises to pay the rest before 30th of June. This clears the deck for the merger with Sony.
Bajaj Auto is trading higher on the back of a positive note coming in from JP Morgan. We will get you the read-through.
Vedanta surges as the company declares its fifth dividend for the year with a hefty payout of 7,600 crore rupees, of which 5,300 crore will flow to the promoters.
And shares of South Indian Bank remain under pressure after MD and CEO Murali Ramakrishnan informs the board that he will not be seeking a reappointment. Key excerpts from our conversation with him coming up a little later on the show.
We'll discuss top portfolio bets with our Alpha manager for the day, Vinay Jaising of GM Financial. All this and much more in the next 60 minutes.
All right, now 45 points, so just under 17,000 once again, with 10 minutes into the show. Mitesh is with us with a call on what to do next in terms of trades with a holiday tomorrow. Mitesh, afternoon. Good to have you back on the program. What's your recommendation?
Good afternoon, Prashant. So I think, the market index per se isn't doing much. Actually, again, we talked about this, that the index might be ranged and we might not see much of a movement happening. And we are just kind of hanging on to the 16,900, 850 zones. So that remains. And the upside, the breakouts are not showing any follow through, or the up moves are not showing any follow through or possibility of a strong breakout or a reversal. So I think it remains a market which is contracting and choppy, but within a range. Having said that, I think I did hear auto being mentioned, and I've picked up TVS Motors as one of these stocks. Good reversal, in fact, in all the auto stocks, but TVS is something which has come on radar as a buy call. It's just giving multiple crossovers on the intraday charts. Buy here with the stop below 1,050. Look for 1120, 1115 as the target area. And the other one is Ultratech Cement, which is also mildly off the day's high, but it's making a fresh swing high. So that's a buy with a stop below levels of 74, 75. And look for targets of around 76.80 over here.
So markets in a range. The top technical trading ideas are TVS Motors and Ultratech Cement, both on the long side. But let's get the latest on the Zee IndusInd Bank Zee Sony merger. And here is the corporate development. Zee and IndusInd Bank have reached a settlement over the insolvency issue. This clears the deck for the Zee Sony merger. Ashmit is here with the details. Ashmit.
Well, Zee will certainly be breathing a sigh of relief. Today's proceedings before the NCLAT means that the decks have now been cleared for the Sony Zee merger. What's interesting is that both Zee councils as well as IndusInd Bank appeared today before the NCLAT, and both the councils in fact submitted before the Apex Court as a part of their arguments, and the settlement was reached as late as 4 a.m. this morning. So that's burning midnight oil, but yielding some results here. As far as Zee is concerned, they've reached a settlement agreement, and there are two aspects to be borne in mind. The first aspect is that of the total dues that were claimed by IndusInd Bank of 83 crore rupees, a part settlement has been reached, and as a part of that settlement, the first tranche has already been paid by Zee. The second tranche will be paid either on or before 30th of June, or it will be paid within 7 days of the Sony Zee merger getting a nod, whichever is earlier. So this is the deal that has been struck. But what does Zee get in return for making this part payment? What Zee gets in return is essentially IndusInd Bank withdrawing its objection from the NCLT proceedings that are pending as far as Sony Zee merger is concerned. So that's the trade-off here. Zee makes that payment upfront in two tranches, and what we get here on the other hand is IndusInd Bank withdraws its objections in NCLT Mumbai and allows NCLT Mumbai to decide the Sony Zee merger on its own merits, on its own credentials. So that's the big takeaway here. Decks being cleared for the Sony Zee merger and the settlement being reached between Zee and IndusInd Bank. Back to you.
Okay, got that. Thanks for explaining all the details to us. So that's a major hurdle. It seems like it's a major hurdle out of the way with respect to the Sony Zee merger. Prakash Devan is joining us with the fundamental view on the market this afternoon. Prakash, thanks for joining in. Good to have you on as always. When the news came, I literally thought Zee will explode. It'll pop and go 7-8% higher. But that's not what's happened. And this stock is still a far cry from levels of almost, I think, 390 when the merger was first announced by the entity. So first things first, why IndusInd Bank has settled this issue. In all probability, the NCLT will give its blessings. So why not a huge or a bigger reaction on Zee today?
Good afternoon, Survi. So first and foremost, the IndusInd, objection was the most recent that came in this whole slew or the saga of, ups and downs. And that was something which possibly was an irritant for the total closure or the finality of this particular merger. And that's why it was critical. It was necessary to get out, but it's not a sufficient condition. So there's much more to happen. And remember, it's up to 30th June that you still have that timeline. So and that's a good 90 days plus. So there's lots that needs to get resolved in that. And particularly, I'll tell you what needs to get resolved. This whole thing of, the agreement that has been arrived at for the creditors, it's something which IndusInd also kind of objected to and came back with its own set of arguments. It's something which might not go through so easily, is a risk that you stand, right? So there could be something which comes up and then it gets deferred again. And we've seen that happen in some of these cases. This is a high-profile merger which probably has both the sides almost kind of agreeing to consummate the merger, but there have been other issues. The external parties have been objecting to it. So that's one of the reasons why that is critical, that it goes through from the environmental perspective. The environment of the landscape of sorts. But the value that you spoke about, 215 from 380 or wherever it was at the time of the announcement, is something which is an arbitrage. That point in time, there was exuberance that the combined entity would end up being so monopolistic in terms of its footprint and clout and all of that. So there's a huge dilution that's happened, given the fact that from that point to now, there's so much of OTT, invasion of sorts in some of these properties that both these combined entities would bring to the table, and that's precisely the reason why the market is not so excited that 390 or 380 looks like a far cry from now. So there could be some upside once you get closer to 30th June and nothing else comes in the way. But that would also be capped, Surabhi. It's not going to be, again, as I said, back to the same levels, but it would probably be much more tempered from that at least, but at least higher from where we are today.
All right, Prakash, I wanted to ask you about cement companies. I've been reaching out to various industry participants, and I believe that there's an effort that from today, tomorrow, day after, that's in the next 2 to around 3 days, there's an effort to push through a price hike. Remember, Q4 went through without any big price increase, though demand was solid. What's your sense on the cement stocks? I mean, what would you pick? And if you have a view on some of these larger names like ACC, Ambuja that have corrected a fair bit from the top.
Yes, Nigel. So I think cement is turning out to be a fairly interesting space, given the fact that there's now a very clear distinction between the micros of some of the businesses rather than just the macros of the sector. And what I mean by that precisely is you have some of the players which have augmented capacities. They might not start commercializing most of the capacities, but they're getting ready for the demand surge, which is likely to come given the thrust on infrastructure, which you will see from the government, which you are seeing from the government now, to probably 2024 when we get into that election mode of sorts. So there's going to be a huge surge in housing, in real estate, in construction activities around infrastructure, which most players are gearing up for. But it's a very smart tactical move. The moment some of the bigger players expand capacity, Nigel, and you know how this has worked in the past, it becomes very inhibiting for smaller players and mid-sized players to increase capacity, right? So you kind of put a lid on growth for other players, whereas you are sitting at a ready to convert kind of capacities in most cases, particularly in the case of Shree, Ultratech, even Dalmia Bharat, we've seen that happen. So if I have to choose, I would go with some of the larger ones, not maybe Ultratech as much, not with Shree as much, because Shree has always been very conservative in terms of its growth plans. I mean, it's been organically very, very rhythmic, but very conservative. Ultratech, of course, and Ambuja ACC, give it some time for the management's interest to come back in executing some of the outline projects, which they have the expansion and all of that, because there's a lot that can work there, but we know how the situation is. So till it's a normal environment to work for them, things would probably be wanting to wait. And on the other side, you have the players like Dalmia and all, which would start going. There was a report on India Cement some time back, I don't know whether it was yesterday or day before, where this was clearly highlighted that some of these mid-sized players will find it extremely difficult to compete. And the price hike, coming to the last point that you mentioned, is something which is on the cards. The lobby, the industry lobby is definitely going to push for it. And it's going to get resisted given inflationary environment that we are in. But at some point, I think before the monsoon, you will see the price hike. So it's just a matter of time. Yeah.
At least for now, the cement demand from residential real estate continues to remain very, very resilient and buoyant. Earlier today, we had Anurag telling us that the housing sales have crossed 1 lakh units in this Jan to March period, and this is the best in terms of quarterly sales in over a decade. So residential real estate continues to remain high despite all the concerns about slowdown and rising interest rates hurting. But let's talk about Bajaj Auto. That's higher in trade. There is a positive brokerage note coming in from JP Morgan. Sonia is here with the details. Sonia?
Well, thanks a lot for that. As you rightly pointed out, there's a positive report coming in from JP Morgan on Bajaj Auto. Now, they maintain an overweight. Their base case target price is 4,400, but their bull case target price is 41% upside to where the current market price is. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. One, they say that exports could be bottoming out and, there's a potential recovery in exports from Q2 of FY24. The other thing they talk about is a slew of new launches that Bajaj Auto has lined up. There's a new premium motorcycle that's coming in from the second quarter of FY24. In that JV between Bajaj and Triumph, there is an expectation of 40,000 volumes by FY25 in the Bajaj Triumph motorcycle range. Apart from that, the electric vehicle launch momentum is also a big trigger. Over the next many quarters, Bajaj Auto is expected to launch several two-wheeler EVs, and there's a three-wheeler electric vehicle that will also be launched by the first quarter of FY24. So, slew of new launches, a recovery in the export market is something that's making JP Morgan very bullish on the stock.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Prakash, are you convinced that exports are close to being bottoming out? JP Morgan believes it should happen in the first half of this financial year, and the tide is turning for Bajaj Auto.
Rima, to be honest, I don't think there's anything very new in this report. They're probably reiterating a view that came through in the last con call itself after the December numbers came out. But, it's a tricky situation. You could probably see resumption of demand in some of the core markets like Nigeria and all, but they could suffer in other markets as well. So it's going to be a while before there's a very clear secular trend in terms of revival that would come through. But at this price, you're not sitting at a very high risk level. I mean, the stock has already seen enough erosion and a recovery, and it's consolidated very well. So from that perspective, yes, it would make sense to hold on to it for some gains. But I can't really make out whether the timing is as accurate as it's been articulated in the report.
Prakash, anything on JSW Energy is seeing a bit of a pop, 6% or so today?
I haven't got anything specific, Prashant, to be honest, but it's a good business. There are different reasons why it's been seen some buying from institutional investors and some HNI, the family offices in the last few months. And that's one of the reasons why, we spoke about this along with Tata Power and some of the other names when the, demand for power was being compensated or being planned for being compensated by the government through some regulatory changes. And that's something which continues to hold them in great they're in a great spot in that sense, in terms of PLFs, in terms of the cost of generation and all of that. So yeah, there could be some specific names that got interested, and probably we'll hear about it later.
By the way, all of us should get ready to pay more for electricity because tariffs are set to go up from the 1st of April. The decision is going to come through this week, because before the end of the financial year. Best has asked for a hike, Tata Power has asked for a hike. Actually, the largest distributor, which is the state-run company, has also asked for a large hike. So we'll see. So that's power in focus as well. Now let's talk about money markets, and liquidity seems to be getting a little tight as we get to the end of the year. That's what the call rate is showing. It's jumped quite significantly. Lata is here to tell us more. Lata, over to you.
Yeah, the interbank call rate is the rate at which banks borrow from one another for a day. And that normally very closely tracks the repo rate, 6.5%. Because if banks are not paying, you can go to the Reserve Bank and borrow from them. That's the 6.5% rate. But it is today traded at a high of 6.9 and the closing rate is 6.85. In fact, this yield has been as high as 6.75 from March 17th or thereabouts. That is from ever since the advance taxes were paid. Now, a bit of it is habitual. the yields go up towards March 31st. One, because liquidity moves out on March 15th, March 16th, advance tax. But more importantly, banks don't want to lend much towards March 31st because you're just finishing up accounts. You want to shore up the balance sheet. You don't want mark-to-markets at that time. So generally at that time, there is a slight rise in yield. But this time, the bigger story is not just that the call rate has gone up to 6.9 or 6.85. The near-term 1-month yields have also gone. If you take a CD, an SBI CD, or any of the other T-bills, Government of India T-bills which are maturing in a month, all those yields have also gone up by 25 basis points. And guess why? You all have got it right. Money is moving from liquid funds to debt funds with medium-term maturity because you are going to get a tax advantage. So what do the liquid funds guys do? They have to either get rid of their near-term paper. They don't want to get rid of their longer-term paper because those yields are still good. They want to get rid of their near-term paper, and that's why there's less demand for them. And they want to liquefy money and give it over to the debt mutual funds, which are buying longer-term paper or will buy. So this looks like it's a short-term problem. The 1-month yields going up, which is up to March 31st. But call rates on March 31st itself, people are worried that it would go even to 7% and beyond.
Okay, so those are some very interesting trends from the money markets coming in. The year-end phenomena compounded with, of course, all the tax changes that we've seen on debt funds. Thanks for explaining the details to us, Lata. Just very quickly, since we're on the subject, we're talking banks and money. By the way, today is a great day on PSU banks. Look at the kind of rally playing out on a Bank of India, UCO Bank. The moves are 4, 5, 6, 6.5%. It's a massive pop on the PSU screen, and that is the best performing index also in the market today. Very quickly, Prakash, any thoughts here?
I don't know about today's price action being what I can attribute it to, except for the March and this thing where, you know, some of these banks have been seeing interest come back, and this whole expectation that FDs are making a big comeback and they might not need to increase their interest rates to attract higher levels of FDs and maintain healthy CASA deposit ratios from a longer term perspective, given the changes in the bond markets and the mutual fund side. But on a more secular basis, we've spoken about this. I think PSU banks and banks in general in India offer tremendous opportunity from a value perspective, given the kind of softness in valuations which we've seen thanks to this US-led crisis, which has got nothing to do with us. And people aren't yet able to take that step and go ahead and move into some of these banks. But look at some private sector banks which are small, like IndusInd and Federal. The performance will be stellar, and it just gets to improve every day with the news flow. So I think PSU banks will make a comeback, provided the momentum in the market comes back. It's more of a retail-led interest which has always been there. So we'll have to wait for it to be more deeper in terms of a trend. But yes, very, very clearly the salience is still there. And I would refrain from adding more banks into the portfolio at these levels.
Okay, all right, Prakash, thanks so much for stopping by and giving us your view on a whole host of stocks. Wishing you a good holiday tomorrow, and we'll see you on Friday. For the time being, though, we'll slip into a short break. When you come back, well, we'll have another guest with us. Our Alpha Manager of the day, Vinay Jaisingh of JM Financial, will be joining us to give us his view on the markets as well as themes that he likes. You don't want to miss this.
अभी तो मैं अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट लिमिट तक पहुंच गया हूं यार। काश कोई ऐसा इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान होता जो मुझे एडिशनल टैक्स बेनिफिट देता।
रवि, बस इतनी सी बात, तुम एनपीएस पे क्यों नहीं इन्वेस्ट करते?
एनपीएस, इसमें इन्वेस्ट करने से क्या बेनिफिट है?
एनपीएस देता है 50,000 तक की इन्वेस्टमेंट पर एडिशनल टैक्स बेनिफिट, वो भी 1.5 लाख की लिमिट के ऊपर।
अरे वाह, अब तो मुझे भी इसमें इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए ना।
तो इंतजार किस बात का? आज ही एनपीएस ट्रस्ट की वेबसाइट पर जाओ और इन्वेस्ट करो।
पेंशन है तो टेंशन नहीं। एनपीएस इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर सब्जेक्ट टू मार्केट रिस्क्स।
Be celebrated with the big, bold, beautiful Nissan Magnite.
Okay, welcome back. You got the market, which is not doing very much, still about 60, 65 odd points. I mean, as I said, it feels a little touch and go, a little tentative, fleeting with these gains without building on them. Tomorrow is a holiday, maybe that is also keeping people a little constrained. Not as if, I mean, this was a go-go market in any case, but today it's up, but refusing to go any further. Our alpha manager today is Vinay Jaising, Managing Director, Portfolio Management Services at JM Financial Services. Vinay, good to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. What themes, Vinay, are you betting on now with the market correction sort of in a way firmly entrenched? You know, we've got to a point where we've started talking about how, broader markets have corrected a fair bit. 25% of Nifty 500 companies have lost over 20% from the beginning of the year, et cetera, et cetera. Is it time to start to look for opportunities, and where?
So absolutely. The Indian markets have corrected by almost 9% this year when the rest of the world is up 3%. So the change which India has got derated has been a lot more, very similar to what India had on the opposite side last year, wherein India really did well. So I think it's time to start nibbling into the equity markets for sure. Especially second half of the year when you see the last rate hikes behind us and probably rates coming down, you want to be well entrenched into the Indian part of the market. So where do we put money? I think three themes we are looking at. First, interest rates will remain high for a longer period of time. So here we like banks. We like both private sector banks and public sector banks. We're excited about the loan book growth, which is a high 15% today, largely coming in from retail. But once the capex part of the story comes up, firstly from the government, but later on from the corporates, you'll start seeing a lot of corporate loan book growth activation as well, which may be probably later part of next year. So banks is where we are very excited about. The second part where we're excited about is the capex part of the story. We've heard a lot about what the government suggested of increasing the capex spend as a percentage of GDP from 4.1 to 4.9. So here, again, I think we've got a lot of baskets coming in the capex story, cement names, some manufacturing names, defense names coming into the play. And the third, the dollar, the DXY has corrected from 115 to 102. But the rupee is still resilient at 82. It's neither moving up nor moving down largely this year. And seeing what US is doing, we will not be surprised if the rupee goes probably to 84, 85 levels. So make in India story, playing a little bit of companies, which are getting net revenues for the country would be the third theme for us. So three themes which we are going to be looking into.
Vinay, afternoon. I remember our last conversation where you delved a little deeper into these individual themes and specialty chemicals. You spoke about how you like Archean Chemicals, Tattva Chintan, Devyani International in the domestic inflation theme is something that you like. Any new themes that you're dabbling under this broad structure that you've outlined?
Sure. So in the capex angle, I think now we need to look at, what can the cement companies give? At one end, you've seen the coal prices coming down. At the second end, you're also seeing a possible price hike coming in. So there we like companies like at one end Orient Cement in small cap, mid cap, and companies like Ultratech Cement. So that's one part of the capex angle we like. Also, we really like companies like Hindustan Aeronautics, courtesy, the Make in India story coming in. And MTAR, again, because of the way it's keeping on increasing its order book coming in from Bloom globally. So, these are two companies which we really like as far as a theme of Make in India is concerned.
Okay, stay on, Vinay. Just give us a moment. The market's making a move back to the highs of the day. That's the extent of volatility. We've had three instances where the market sold off from the top, and then there's buying also at the lower levels. So it is a great tussle between the bulls and the bears, and the bulls definitely have the upper hand right now. We're practically back at the highs of the day. Pull up the intraday charts on Axis Bank and IndusInd Bank. Some of these stocks are making very, very strong moves on the upside as we get into the final expiry spell as well, the last 25 odd minutes. Look at that shoot up on Axis Bank, and a similar spike coming through on an IndusInd Bank as well for the time being. Then you have L&T that's moving higher. So quite a few stocks that are now getting added to the mix on the upside. Vinay, just expand on your thoughts on the financial space. I mean, you did mention that you want to be with top-notch franchise. How should one cut it up? Because we're probably at the peak end of the rate cycle, so there's some concern about margin compression. But then you have, banks also getting the deposit tailwind now with the tax changes on mutual funds. So again, would you look at private sector, PSU? Would you look beyond banks to other parts of BFSI as well?
So we've got a problem of plenty in banks. Lots of banks are very high quality, and lots of them have got derated as well. If you look at the biggest bank in the country, HDFC Bank, courtesy the merger with HDFC Limited, it'll get an angle of actually probably NIMs improving in the shorter term once HDFC Limited's inputs kick in for HDFC Bank, and then probably stabilize at current levels. The stock is trading at about 2.7 times one-year forward price to book. Its average has been 3.8. We've seen robust earnings growth there, both the top line and bottom line of 18 to 20%. So that's one of our favorites. Moving on, you mentioned Axis and IndusInd. We like them as well. Both of them have got growth on the top line between 15 and 22% as far as the loan book growth is concerned, and bottom line growth coming in line. All of these companies have capital adequacy ratios also being very positive. Moving to the PSU banks, we like SBI and Bank of Baroda, both with a valuation angle and them being very clean as far as their banking franchise and where they are on the digitization part. So I think you've got a problem of plenty as far as banks are concerned.
Hi, Vinay. Good afternoon, Vinay. Normally I think you're sitting on some cash levels. So can you quantify that, and how does it compare with normal averages in terms of cash positioning? And also, I'm looking at stocks that have corrected close to 30% from the top. One of the stocks that came on my list is Concord from the logistics space. You like that theme?
So, on your first question, we were earlier at about 10% cash. We've deployed a bit. Now we are at about 8% cash. We think, it's time that you have to start deploying a little bit more cash in the next by the next quarter, so that, by the second half we are fully deployed. So that's our cash position. Remember, the market today is at about 18 times 1 year forward. And when you go 1 year from today, you're probably at 15 to 16 times for F2025 numbers. So the market will start looking attractive once the rates start getting cut. And we're probably 4 to 5 months away from that. So, we're well geared up for that. On Container Corp, we like Container Corp. It has some problems in the short term, having said that. Why do we like it? Because, it is a cash cow. It is a play on, the railroads coming in the country. And as imports and exports improve, when the world gets to normalcy, Container Corp has a lot to gain. The short-term pain which Container Corp is really having is when does it get divested? We already know what's happening to the Adani issue, which is partly getting sold. But once the government moves with the divestment part of the angle, this stock has gone from a 40 plus time 1 year forward multiple to a 20-25 time 1 year forward multiple. Earnings are 10 to 12%. It has net cash, and it's a big play on logistics or capex of the country. So I would say 6 months from today, this stock should start doing much better. But yes, in the short term, it has had some pain, and I think a lot of the pain is behind it.
All right, Vinay, thanks very much for that. We'll take a very quick commercial break. Stay with us. We are up 118 points and things are looking pretty solid. 17,066 is where we are at, which means that the market is almost at the high point. We are practically the high point of the day. 17,070 was the high. We're about 4 points short. Take that break. D Street Chatter with Nimesh coming up. Buy today, sell tomorrow, or reverse trades coming up after that. And of course, we'll get on with the market discussion in a bit from now. 20 minutes to go for market closing.
Show me the sunset. You make me happy. We wanna go there. It's beautiful.
Magnite. Be celebrated with the big, bold, beautiful Nissan Magnite.
पंजाब बदल रहा है, नई रफ्तार से चल रहा है। खेतों में उम्मीद उगी है, खड़ी फसल गुनगुना रही है, गीत बदलाव के गा रही है, पिंड में भांगड़ा मचल रहा है, पंजाब बदल रहा है। मुश्किल से मिलते हैं मुश्किल में साथी, यहां तो हरदम कोई खड़ा है। हर मोहल्ले का अपना क्लिनिक, फ्री में इलाज चल रहा है, पंजाब बदल रहा है। मोहाली बस स्टेडियम नहीं, स्टार्टअप का भी हब है अब। टेक्नोलॉजी के इस शहर को सबने इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए चुना है। हौसला यूथ का उबल रहा है, पंजाब बदल रहा है। आने वाले सुनहरे कल की देखो तो तैयारी। सरकारी स्कूल में अब तो शिक्षा मिलती है म्यारी। करप्शन पर जीरो टॉलरेंस, बिजली का बिल भी जीरो है। इस बदलते पंजाब में अब तो आम आदमी हीरो है। किया संकल्प के बदलेंगे, मंजिल पे जाके दम लेंगे। सोच नई, अप्रोच नई, नई रफ्तार से चल रहा है, पंजाब बदल रहा है। तरक्की का एक साल पंजाब के साथ।
Welcome back. You're tuned in to Closing Bell, and we are coming to you live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal newsroom. Well, the markets have spiked to the high point of the day, and the Nifty now has gone ahead and broken that 17,075 odd mark. And that's predominantly because the Nifty Bank, that's the one that's really moving with good momentum. And that's crossed the 200 DMA. That's the level we pointed out earlier today. Now it's 100 points higher than that 200 DMA. And that's the reason, in fact, the Nifty has moved to the high point of the day. It's been a very, very weak series, and we are down close to around 500 points. But the bulls, it seems, they want to pull back some. They pulled back close to around 130 points odd. And at least they're going out with a bit of a fight or a bit of a flourish. But it's that time of the day when we focus on D Street Chatter. Nimesh is with us. Nimesh, tell us, good to see, right? Some bit of a relief, some broader market participation, not as boring, and some chipping in, it seems.
So good looking screen, that's something. And the good part is that there is interest back in the broader markets. At least the broader markets are doing good today. Yeah. And that's a bit of a relief as well. For the last many days, every day to come and see your portfolio going down, in trading you're not making money, it was disheartening. Today it's slightly a better day, so to speak. But in terms of volumes, that's not the sense that I'm getting, that there is a lot of action back in the broader market. So it's more like a pullback from very oversold levels. That could be the reading as far as the broader markets are concerned. Today it's going to be a high volume day because of the various index rebalancing. So the volume, the actual volumes will be quite high on both the exchanges. That's the overall feedback. But outside of index rebalancing, the flows are pretty much mixed, but with a positive bias. I guess we spoke yesterday as well, right? There was some indication of some bit of interest back in the financial names, and that trend continued in today's trade as well. So even in today, there is good amount of bidding happening in the financial names, and there is a bit of interest shown by the larger institutions in the large private banks. So that's the second overall feedback. From a technical point of view, again, 16,800 is acting as a very strong support, so that's a good sign. But I guess a bit of a relief rally the first day. Needs to see how it pans out next week. But remember, next few days this week and next week are truncated days, so maybe you'll not see too much of participation. But I guess some bit of relief rally can continue in the broader markets.
All right, Nimesh, and we are also focusing on a lot of stocks, and one such stock has been Vedanta. It's been in the news. We have put out a couple of questions to the management. Are you all looking at, some kind of a deal? And they have denied that for now. But you're picking up some bit of news on that?
Yes, so Vedanta is part of my charter list as well. But first I'll come on Max Financial. There was a large block deal, and after that you saw a bit of an up move as well in that stock. In terms of disclosure, looks like the promoter entity is a likely seller in today's block deal in Max Financial, and one of the leading wealth firm was a buyer. So the disclosure will be important, but looks like the promoter entity was a seller in Max Financial today. So that's the first one. The second stock is Vedanta. As Nigel pointed out, too much of news going around, dividend announcements, stakes announcements as well. But now, the overall chatter in the dealing room is that maybe you'll see a large block in Vedanta very soon. So again, there the disclosures could be important, but that's something to track in Vedanta going forward for a possible large block. The third stock is Asian Paints. Now, within the large cap names, outside of the index rebalancing flows, this is the only stock where there's a large sell flow at a leading FI yesterday. So that's, that probably explains that even in a good market, that stock is a relative underperformer, largely in back of sell flows. So that's Asian Paints. And the last stock is Jain Irrigation. A big move in that stock. Volumes are also on the higher side. Last when I checked, the stock was up 10%. And for a long time, the long pending approval for merger of their international business with Temasek is pending, and now the street is anticipating that that approval can come very soon. So that is something to track in Jain Irrigation, and hence that stock is buzzing up 10% in today's trade.
Hey, all right, Nimesh, got that. Thank you very much for all the details and all the buzz from the street. By the way, the street has decided to move higher. The monthly expiry effect is at play, and we were pretty solid, 150-point move now, 140 to be more precise, on the Nifty, and we are rushing to the highs of the day. We'll just pull up the gainers for you to just put things in context. Obviously, the Adani group of stocks have had a pretty sharp up move today, and Adani Ports is leading from the front. It is the biggest gainer on the Nifty right now, 7.5%. And after that come in the likes of IndusInd Bank, Axis, L&T, Lever, the heavyweights which are pulling from the side. Let's get that contribution plate actually back up. That's pretty helpful. So the heavies are doing the lifting. HUL is one of them. Some of the bank names there. L&T is out there. SBI is there. And so is HDFC Bank. The three key counterweights on the downside today are the top three names on the red side of the screen. Bharti, Reliance and ICICI Bank. Folks, Reliance has been absolutely confounding, hasn't it? For all of the reports that come in with price targets closer to 2,900 or 3,000 plus, the stock simply hasn't moved an inch. And even on a day like today, the expiry playing out, we're seeing absolutely no rub-off on this big.
I don't think there's anyone left to upgrade, right? I think there are, because I think 40, 50 brokers covered it. But at least the bigger ones have all come in and upgraded the stock. But the stock's doing what it wants to do. The other thing is the small cap index. If we can have the Nifty small cap index up, we started with a 1.2% gain on the small cap index at 230. It's up almost 1.75%. So there is further buying, which is being seen. Like we do for the Nifty, what I've tried to do is looked at the contribution in terms of what is pushing the small cap space up by. So the names that I am coming up with is IIFL is a big reason why IIFL is sort of adding about 10 points or so to the small cap index. Suzlon is another one, which is IIFL is up 7%. The price is up 7%. Suzlon is up 12%. That is another reason why NBCC is adding about 10 points. That is up about NBCC is up 16%. These are the movers. Praj is another one. Praj is up about 9%. These are large gainers within the small cap, and the biggest contributors there. Renuka Sugars is another one which is coming up with a 8% move. It's adding about 8 points, 8 index points to small caps. EID Paddy is coming up with a 6% gain on the price. Carborundum Universal is up 2%. Balrampur Chini is up about 4.5%. KEI, and we'll play out the soundbite. We had the management with us earlier. KEI is lost actually from the highs. It's just about 1 3/4% higher. It was up almost 4%. IDFC is another one, and so on and so forth. Exide Industries is another one which is which is up about 2.5%. 143 on the Nifty for now, 17,095. Mitesh is with us to tell us whether one should be a believer and take long positions home as we go into a holiday and then come back on Friday. Mitesh, what would you say?
So, Prashant, we've been indicating that the market has been ranged, but this last 2 hours of data, in fact, around this time mark of around 2 o'clock, and then since then, what move we have seen, I think has turned a lot of intraday indicators on the upside. So this should now possibly test 170, 150 zone, which is what we are talking about. So that's only 50, 70 points away. But there's also a good chance of us trying to make an attempt beyond that and head towards 17,250, 280 zone. So in that sense, take a tight stop loss on the index. I would suggest stop just around 17,050 or just maybe 2-3 points below that, and look for a target of 17,250. So this gives you a good risk-reward equation. And on the stock side also, I think, Bajaj Auto is something, another auto name which has come on the buying list. That's a stock which I would recommend to buy upon. BTST here with the stop just around levels of 38, 48, 30, just below 38.50, and a target of around 39.10 can be looked at. And the other one is AU Bank. That's a BTST with a stop at about 582 for targets of 600.
Okay, so the bias remains on the bullish side. Mitesh, thank you very much for that. By the way, mid-cap IT is also having quite the surge in the last 10 minutes. Emphasis has gained 3.5%. Pull up the intraday chart of a Mastech, a Tata LXC, and L&T Technology Services across the board, even in large caps, in fact. Wipro and Wipro as well in TCS are both surging in trade.
Look at Policy Bazaar, PB Fintech. I'm just looking. All the gains have come in the last 1 hour. Actually, last 220 stock was at about 590, is at about 630 right now. So it's a very, very sharp move on PB Fintech, 625.
Okay, let's get in. Sudeep Bandyopadhyay of IndiTrade Capital now on the show with us. Sudeep, afternoon. Wanted to get your thoughts in on Emphasis. Now, Emphasis has clarified that they don't have exposure to any of these beleaguered banks like SVB, Silvergate, and they've also indicated that their exposure to the US regional banks is in low to mid-single digits. Now, considering the stock has fallen 20% since the onset of the SVB crisis and it's underperformed due to fears of this BFSI exposure, do you think this clarification will allay frayed nerves and this makes a good entry opportunity?
Well, definitely this helps because we all know that Emphasis has the largest exposure to the BFSI segment, and that's 50% plus. And I think this is by far the largest amongst Indian IT companies having exposure on BFSI. Obviously, with what's happening in US, the mid-tier banks, there were a significant amount of concern as far as what's going to happen to some of their receivables from these banks, as well as the future business potential. Now, the clarification to an extent assures that they don't have those kind of challenges. They're not affected by the banks which have gone down or are tottering. But having said that, I think there are still significant issues as far as US BFSI, particularly smaller and medium BFSI companies, including banks in US. So it's definitely a wait and watch. The correction was brutal, and some amount of recovery post this correction probably is warranted. But to say that everything is good and we should go back to that valuations where it was, let's say about a month and a half back, I think that will be a little too premature.
All right, Sudeep, the one that's really running away right now is NBCC. I don't know whether we can pull up a couple of candles, but that candle that we'll see out there is quite stark. It's a sharp uptick what we're seeing. Any view on the stock? I recall maybe a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, everyone was very gung-ho on NBCC, and then bomb. Nothing really played out. But now it seems again the street is giving it a long handle. Your view?
Nigel, I think they had a lot of challenges on execution. They had a lot of regulatory and other issues which they got bogged down with. In the recent past, if you have noticed, they have started getting fresh order wins, announcing fresh order wins. There were some announcements, I think yesterday as well, on some about 150 crore worth of order win. So I think these all augurs well. And of course, this is on top of the fact that there is a significant tailwind behind construction and infrastructure on the back of significant public sector capital expenditure, which has been announced by the government. And also a lot of housing activity has picked up, as was apparent from the research reports which are coming from leading real estate consultants. So I think NBCC, if they can get their act together as far as execution is concerned, things will start improving remarkably. Considering the valuation at which NBCC was tottering was significantly lower compared to its peers, I think one can look at NBCC.
Yep, NBCC has made quite the move, but if you look at longer-term chart, an absolute trading range for the last, I think, 5 years or more. Sudeep, hi, good afternoon. I have another stock that's making an equally sharp move today, and that is Macrotech. I mean, real estate as a space has been buzzing, but Macrotech is, I think, up almost 10%. Your thoughts on the sector as a whole, and if you have any specific picks, does Lodha figure in that list?
Well, definitely. Overall, I think we heard in the channel today earlier a report on how real estate is performing, and I think it's probably they're recording record sales in the current quarter. And I think that does augur well. We were all scared of real estate when the COVID first came in. Then we realized that probably there's a great opportunity for residential real estate expansion. And now we are realizing that COVID has subsided. People are going back to office. So even commercial real estate has started picking up. As far as specifically Macrotech is concerned, I think they have a significant hold on the Mumbai market. And they are expanding into Pune, and they are getting good traction in Pune as well. So yes, if somebody is a long-term player, they can look at Macrotech. But there are a couple of other good quality real estate companies which we have been looking at. One is Brokerage Properties. I think the company got beaten down because of some failed and joint venture announcements and things like that. But things have started picking up. They have presence in 3 metros, Delhi, NCR, Mumbai, and Pune. And I think over a period of time, there is significant value creation opportunity as far as Brokerage Properties is concerned.
Sudeep, thank you very much for joining in. The Nifty is pushing higher. 17,100 has been conquered. And considering just at 2:30 when we started the show, the Nifty was at levels of 17,000. Look at the way we've moved up in the last 1 hour. And we've still got about 5 minutes of trade left. Get into a break. We'll come back with the closing rates.
ना इधर ना उधर, इस बार टाटा IPL सिर्फ जियो सिनेमा पर।
ICICI लोम्बार्ड B-Fit कवर से सारी मेडिसिन कैशलेस मिल गई।
कैशलेस मेडिसिन झूठ की वे खाद होती है मास्टर जी।
ICICI लोम्बार्ड हेल्थ एडवांटेज प्लस के साथ B-Fit कवर जो दे मेटर्निटी कवर, कैशलेस मेडिसिन जैसे फीचर्स। इट्स अनबिलीवेबल बट ट्रू।
It's time to break free. Break away from the routine to the greens and get lost in the world within. To steer through, to stop. Start again. Go forth and just let it all go. With JK Tyre's Ranger 80 for the ones who are wild at heart. JK Tyre, total control.
कविता, मैं अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट लिमिट तक पहुंच गया हूं यार। काश कोई ऐसा इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान होता कि मुझे एडिशनल टैक्स बेनिफिट देता।
रवि, बस इतनी सी बात, तुम एनपीएस पे क्यों नहीं इन्वेस्ट करती?
एनपीएस, इसमें इन्वेस्ट करने से क्या बेनिफिट है?
एनपीएस देता है 50,000 तक की इन्वेस्टमेंट पर एडिशनल टैक्स बेनिफिट, वो भी 1.5 लाख की लिमिट के ऊपर।
अरे वाह, अब तो मुझे भी इसमें इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए ना।
तो इंतजार किस बात का? आज ही एनपीएस ट्रस्ट की वेबसाइट पर जाओ और इन्वेस्ट करो।
पेंशन है तो टेंशन नहीं। एनपीएस इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर सब्जेक्ट टू मार्केट रिस्क्स।
Okay, welcome back. Just about 2 minutes to go for market closing. We're going to end with about 170 points in gains. Percentage terms wise, that is just under 1%. And, you know, it's the story, of course, has been just the Bank Nifty as well. Before I get to the broader market, Bank Nifty will end a little better, 1.25% of the Bank Nifty. So that's about 450 odd points in terms of gains. And the mid and the small cap part of the market did even better. I think broadly 1.5% to 1.75% gain on the mid and small cap part of the market. Holiday tomorrow, and one can only hope that when we come back on Friday, these gains can be held. Prima.
Phenomenal move in the last 1 hour on expiry day. So closing above 17,100. The gains were led by the Adani Group stocks. Adani Enterprises pushing towards a 10% rally. Adani Ports gaining 7.5%. Autos in top gear. Eicher Motors, Bajaj Auto, Hero MotoCorp, Tata Motors all ending with gains ranging between 2 to 3%. HCL Tech outperformed in the entire IT basket. So HCL Tech was higher in trade. Apart from that, ONGC made an up move. Britannia has been showing strength of late. Britannia has rallied 2% this week. So it's not just today, but over the last couple of days, Britannia has been pushing higher. Few losers by the end of close. You've got UPL, you've got a Bharti Airtel and Reliance Industries. But again, the loss is not very significant.
Well, gains and more gains for the mid-cap market. The index is going home with a 1.6% surge. And you have some big movers and shakers out there. NBCC and Macro Tech, these are stocks we were just discussing. Add of Phoenix Mills, about a 4%, 5% up move over there. Of course, a lot of the Adani Group stocks have had a very, very smart session. Adani Enterprise, as the bell goes off, is up almost 10%. Ports on the large cap screen, of course, was up about 7% as well. Power and a couple of others were also up and about. Then some of the smaller names like an RHI Magnesita, where promoters are looking to put some money in the company. 4.5% on the upside over there. PSU banks did extremely well, whether you're looking at a UCO, Bank of India, IOB, gains between 6-7% depending on which stock you're picking up. And NHPC 9% higher on the small cap screen. Royal Orchid 15% higher. Big moves across the board coming through. IRB Infra 7 to 8% higher. So a good day for the mid caps. Z Entertainment, let's just check the final rates as there was positive news flow from the NCLT with respect to at least their issues with IndusInd Bank having been settled. 3% up on Z as well. The only loser which perhaps really deserves a mention on the back of news flow is South Indian Bank. Final rate is around 13%, 12.5 to 13% lower, as the present MD has decided not to seek a reappointment. But otherwise, guys, after a really long time, right, we have a solid screen and we have a market that's ended at the high point of the day. Prashant, I don't remember the last time I used that phrase.
Bulls can go into their holiday peacefully and sleep tonight, right?
Just one day.
One day, but
there's a holiday in between.
Take what you get, guys, and be happy.
We've all been talking about this tactical up move. Is this the
it's finally happened, at least it's
tactical
finally.
up move? Let's hope so. Have a good holiday tomorrow. And of course, we'll see you back on Friday morning. But programming continues here on CNBC-TV18. Don't go anywhere. Our special offering, the winning